introduction. Dr. Mukenge, Chilemalema Mukenge, he taught at Morris Brown College here in the Atlanta University Center for how many years?
29.
29 years. Absolutely, he has a very great legacy here. And also, something that you all should know is that Dr. Mukenge was the one responsible for giving me my first professional job at Morris Brown College. So he is the reason for the start of my academic career. And Samantha Obuobi coming up after him is one of our most fabulous, hardworking, diligent, brilliant students at Howard University. I always tell her, actually, I still use her paper as my model. The paper that she wrote on Ernest Just at Howard University still, in all of my years at Howard University, is the best paper that I've ever seen in that research and writing class, and you know I don't say that lightly. But Samantha Obuobi is going to, actually she's presented at ASCAC many times, so she's an old head, but she's going to give a wonderful presentation today. So they'll come up, Samantha will come up after.
So to move forward,
Just push enter right here. You can just put
Is it good afternoon or good evening? Good afternoon. How are you? Okay, my name is Mukenge Chilemalema. I am from the Congo. And what I'm going to present to you is in part something that I was taught when I was a child, and which later on I researched when I became educated. And every morning, a lady who has a baby wakes up at the same time as the baby, because when two people sleep in the same bed, the one who lives first takes away the strength of the one who stays in the bed. So in order to protect the child, the mother rises at the same time. She sits outside and puts the baby on her lap to give him a massage. After giving the massage and washing the baby, she takes the baby outside and presents the baby to God. At the same time, speaking to the baby, telling the baby, be strong, grow, get married, have children, and build the country. And then she leaves the child with the babysitter to go to the farm. And we were educated to value something called strength, vitality. And that vitality has many dimensions. It's the vitality of the body, which is health or all physical aptitudes. Is vitality, strength of the mind, which means intelligence, which means wisdom, mental states. And a person who has that ability, who has the strength, that person has the strength to work, to produce. And the strength also, a person who has the strength has the strength to perform sexually, to become a married person, and to have children. That person who has intelligence, who has the strength of the body, who has the strength of wisdom, can aspire to become a leader. So, come on now. Okay.
Oh, you got it.
Okay. In order for you to have strength, to work, to marry, to produce wealth, to become political leader, you need to exist first. First, there's the notion of being, human being. The human being has physical and metaphysical aspects. We see the body, and I have added two other elements, the heart and the blood, because they work together to keep life, to keep the person alive. The person who is alive has a heart that beats. That heart transfers blood all throughout the body, and that's the only way the only way the person can survive. So when the heart does not work anymore, cannot push the blood throughout the body, we have the phenomenon that we call death. Also, the blood circulating throughout the body, transferring life, that life that comes from creation, which means that the whole body is sacred because it has the Spirit of God, which was infused into people through creation. The whole body is sacred. And related to that sacredness is there are rules that the body cannot be violated. You cannot refuse food to somebody who has God's blood in his or her veins. You cannot molest a person. So human rights in the individual can also be, let's say, traced to creation. That's the notion. Okay, the metaphysical aspect, the aspects of the human being that we don't see. We have conscience. We have what we call soul. Soul is the base of emotions, where our emotions are. They are in the soul. And those aspects of the human being are part of the strength. We use your conscience, you use your soul, you use your intelligence in order to perform in any area of life. And the human being, the essence of the person, can remain in parts of the body that have been severed from the body. In the hair, for example, in the nail. And people used to think about that as being a superstition. But if you know today that with your hair, they can find your DNA. So the idea is that the essence of the person remains in the parts of the person even when those parts are no longer part of the body. And there are also reflections and projections. The essence of you are in your shadow, in your footprints. They are in your voice. When I was in elementary school, long time ago, we lived far, far away from the mission station where the school was. We were waking up around 4 o'clock in the morning. And there were some other young people who lived farther than where we were. So when they reached our area, they will yell so that we can hear them. Okay, that went well until some bird began to imitate the voice. We stopped. we stopped. We were afraid that a sorcerer could capture the voice and something would happen to us. Okay, it's to say that there is a belief that there's part of the person in the person's voice. There's part of person in the footprint, part of the person in the shadow. Suppose someone who tells you that that person loves you, and that person looks at your shadow in the water and begin punching a knife in the shadow. Do you see that person loves you? Okay, so the being of the individual can be affected not only by physical aspect, but also by mystical powers. Okay, now, the things that the parents taught us to aspire to when you want to become somebody in life, when you want to become successful in life, what are the things you need? You have that vitality, which I said is vitality of the body, vitality of the mind, and you aspire to material prosperity, bubanji. Those terms, they educate you. That's what to aspire to. Lubanza, stable marriage. Lulelu, procreation. Bulongo, kinship. Bukalenga, political power. And the last one I'll be the bookish. Is among the things that you do, the things that you are being exposed to, there is the ancestors who are representative of God in our lives, who continue to be with us even after they are dead. So you grow up with the goals to pursue in life. It's like they trace a ladder to climb. For you to climb the ladder, to achieve your destiny, you need strength, that vitality, and that vitality allows you to work. With the work, you produce material prosperity. In Africa, we marry by transferring wealth from the family of the groom to the family of the bride. So your work will allow you to produce the goods that you need and to have incomes to transfer for your marriage. And in marriage, after that, you have children. And I have heard you say several times it takes a village to raise a child. We are educated with the responsibility to enlarge the village. My children are not just mine. They are the children of all of us. I grew up in a family where I had 3 fathers. That means my father and his 2 brothers. They loved each other to the point that each time everyone moved to some place, the others will go there. So I grew up with several cousins. We don't call them cousins. It's brothers and sisters. And that caused us some problems when the Europeans came about. You work for an European, and you ask to go home because your father died. Okay, you go home. A month after, you go to him to ask him, my father died. You went, yeah, that's my father so-and-so, and now this is my father so-and-so. Okay? And our brothers and sisters, we don't distinguish between the cousins. We know his cousin, but he's my brother, he's my sister. So you grow up with a large group of people as members of the same family. And you have the same common responsibilities. When we talk about belong, kinship, not kinship. We have responsibility to pay, for example, to pay the first fruits. The first fruits that I pay are not designed just for my father. They may be for someone who is older than my father, who represents the ancestors. I pay to that person. So what I'm trying to say is that in order to progress in life, you need to have strength. But there are things that you need to do. When you work, and in other areas, what I have found out is that they require you to seek for excellence, to perform to your best. That's one. And at the same time, there is a clause that's saying that no matter how well you perform, you cannot succeed unless, and that unless has a religious, spiritual connotation, something that relates you to the supernatural. Let's take in the case of material prosperity. You have to respect the work ethics. You have to work hard. You have to be able to do the things that you need in your life. We are talking now about a subsistence economy, where you are practically responsible to produce all the things that you need. Okay? You build your own house. You cultivate food. You weave what you need to collect whatever it is. So you are trained to be versatile, to have versatile skills. And in our society, the Luba, for example, they are farmers. And you have to learn how to cultivate to the best of your ability, when to plant, how to select the soil, when to weed, when to harvest, and so on. But there is a clause. You can all do all that well, but for you to succeed, you must pay the tributes of the first fruits. When you start with working the land, the first crops, you offer them to the ancestors. And when, with the crops, you buy a chicken to raise, the first chicken that you raise, according to the law, you offer it to the representative of the ancestor. The idea is that with the crops and the chickens that you raise, you will be able to raise goats. We raise goats in our area, not cattle. So the first goat that you buy, you must offer it to the representative of the ancestors. Okay, you continue to work. I told you that in Africa, we marry by giving wealth. So when with the wealth from your work, you are able to unite enough bride wealth, it's expected that the first woman that you marry from your work, you're going to offer to the ancestors, to the representative of the ancestors. So, okay, thank you. Well, what we do then is that's symbolic. When I married, I went with my wife to my father, I offered, and the father will bless you, accept the woman. Now the woman is her property, and he gives that property to you in order to allow you to continue. The same thing for marriage. For you to be successful in marriage, is expected that marriage is legitimate. So in the African context, it means that you have paid the bride wealth. You have been accepted by the family of the bride. And also it's expected that you carry out to the best of ability gender roles within the family, within the marriage. But there is a clause. No matter how well you do in legitimacy or in gender roles, unless you respect the regulations by the ancestors and the rules of protection from the ancestors. Otherwise, you cannot succeed. For children, we say that you need to be able to perform and to have children, but the child must be cared for. And there are different types of care that you need for that child to grow, to become prosperous. The expectation is not just to have many children. We like to have many children, but at the same time, it's expected that you have to raise those children in such a way that they become prosperous in their lives. And there's education, treating the child in a way that the child grows emotionally and socially. Is a good child, good behavior, balanced, and so on. But there is a clause. No matter how well you're doing those things, unless you have rituals, birth rituals for the child, that child cannot succeed. And behind that, we know that in addition to being God's creation, in Africa, we believe in reincarnation. Your child is a returning spirit. That means the child is a spirit that becomes flesh. And our midwife are trained to observe the marks on the child in order to be able to determine what kind of personality that child is. And I have counted among the Bulba, there are about at least 27 types of babies. So when a child is born, he's one of those about 27 types. The type may be based on the marks on the child's body. When I was a baby, my mother told me that I was a kabunga. Kabunga means a sorrow one, okay? Because she said I was born with my hand on my jaw, okay? And some children have a title based on the order of birth. For example, someone who has 3 or 4 boys and then has a girl, that girl has a special status, a special title, based on the order of birth. Sometimes it is after the events that have happened in the family. And then there must be rituals for the child, for that child to be balanced. And the rituals will be different, okay? In the community, we are building community sharing. That's the principle. You have to share, respect for the seniors, and there are moral restraints. When we talk about incest in Africa, it sometimes is, when they talk about it, the people that you have to avoid is a large number. For example, I cannot take a woman from my mother's lineage, okay? Or I have to go to a distant village in order to find a woman, because the others are related to me. So there's somebody going, for you to succeed in life and build community, you have to respect those moral restraints, among other things. Okay, for political power, in order for you to become an effective political leader, you have territorial authorities. So you have power over a land or over the people in your land. And you must share governance. Some other people have different responsibility from yours. No accumulation of power in your hands alone. No mixing. But for you to succeed politically, you must be legitimized. Sometimes the people come to power through conquest. That's not a good process. But you must be legitimized. But in addition to that, you must be spiritualized. That means you have to go through rituals that make you the equal of the spirits of past leaders. That allows you to have the power. You have heard from Untold or the others. The condition, the state of the king affects the whole country. A sick king makes a sick country. A weak king, a weak country. And when there is a plague in a society, people look to the king. We must have done something that has weakened the country. The Jews in Egypt, they talk about what? The plagues that were caused by their God. No, that was an African custom, an African belief, is that when the king has done something wrong, okay, some bad thing is going to happen to the country. So the sacredness of the king, you're talking about the Queen Mother, is part of the sacred kingship. There are only some people who have confirmed themselves, who are legitimate, who have been installed according to rituals accepted in the custom, can do it. So all I have tried to say is that we have life goals. Those life goals, we can relate them to study of creation. All those things have their basis. When we read about creation in Africa, you find basis for material production, for family, for community, for power. And in the pursuit of those life goals, there is a requirement that you have to perform to the best of your ability. But there is a clause for you to succeed, even after working well, you must respect rules, spiritual rules, rules of morality, rules of integrity, of how to relate to others, respect for the elders, and recognition of God. I have not mentioned God. All these things are God, okay? When we talk about monotheism, monotheism means that there is only one creator. Even if there are other gods, there are spirits. There's a cognition, they are lower spirits created by that God. So there's monotheism, even if there are some other divinities which are being venerated. Take the case of the Yoruba. Yoruba, they have only one creator, Olodumare. But they are the Orishas, who are like the ministers of the Olodumare, who are responsible for particular function in society. So those beliefs are there. And in many African countries, many African traditions, those God's powers, come to us through the ancestors. That's the respect that we have the ancestors. When we venerate the ancestors, it's expected that whatever we do to them, they will take it to God, because they are a representative of God among us, and they are our elders. So they are, after death, they have become closer to God than we are. They intercede for us, they lie for us. The good things that happen to us from God, they come from through them. Okay. So that is it. Thank you.
Hotep. Before I begin, I would like to ask the elder in the room for permission to speak. All right, so my presentation is The Blueprint to Freedom, the Untold Story of Victor Adegbite. And so in 1957, Ghana attained her independence from the British under Kwame Nkrumah. And Kwame Nkrumah was their first president and prime minister. So once this happened, the biggest priority for Nkrumah became economic independence and nation building, and raising the living standard of the people of Ghana. So according to Nkrumah, actually, quote, "The economic independence that should follow and maintain political independence demands every effort from the people, a total mobilization of brain and manpower and resources." So in order to do this, this also required, actual physical nation, actual building. So he sought the professional services of the first and only US trained Gold Coast architect with a professional degree, which was Victor Adegbite. Victor Adegbite was born November 16, 1925, and he was the only child of Moses Danielson Adegbite and Madame Beatrice Quarty. So both of his parents came from a royal family. And so that's where the Adegbite comes from. The meaning of the root is Ade, or crown. And so Adegbite actually means the crown is seated. So Danielson Adegbite was a royal, and after he completely settled with family and prosperity, wealth, and property, he had his turn to become the king. And so the kingmakers of Abeokuta, Nigeria, came to Accra to get him, but he didn't like the idea, so he denied himself the opportunity to return to Abeokuta to become a king. And that's like the story of his father, so he's actually real royalty. Victor was an exceptional student and loved enhancing his intellectual potential. He went to Achimota College in 1942 and stayed for 4 years, and he actually wanted to pursue a career in medicine. Unfortunately, his mother was incapable of handling the financial burden that's associated with it, And 2 years after graduating from Achimota, he applied for a job with the Town and Country Planning Board in Accra, Ghana. And this was the same day he actually picked up his visa to come to the United States of America. So he was offered a job as a lab assistant, but he turned it down in order to further his education and go on to Howard University. Howard University was always Victor's first and only choice when it came to getting an American degree, a degree from an American university. He said, quote, "Even in those days, Howard was one of the best-known universities in Africa. Many who go to Howard from Africa and other parts of the world as well become leaders in architecture and planning in their government services." He believed that the principles, practices, and skills acquired at Howard sharpened one's sensitivity to climatic, social, cultural, and economic factors, which influence the concepts of design and technology, which is a vital goal in realizing a successful architectural project. So while he was at Howard, he actually had a chance meeting Kwame Nkrumah for the first time. It was a chance meeting. He, according to him, he said there were 5 Ghanaians, 60 Nigerians, and Ethiopians, and 3 Ethiopians who were daughters of ambassadors in DC at the time. And Nkrumah came to visit them when he was leader of government business of the Gold Coast Assembly. So, as fate would have it, everyone except Vic and a fellow architecture student, I think his name was Aaron Milton, everyone was at work, and so those two got to meet with Nkrumah, and they discussed their issues, which happened to be, of course, the lack of income. So what Nkrumah did was he took back their discussion, and he actually sent them money when he returned to Ghana for tuition and immediate needs, and set up an allowance for them. Nkrumah actually also purchased a house on 18th and R Street for African students who needed a place to stay, and most of the people that stayed there were Nigerians. But Vic didn't really do that. He just worked his way, taking menial jobs up. So he was a dry cleaner, dishwasher. He worked at the morgue. He taught ballroom dance classes. He picked up anything he could to pay his way through Howard. Just a quick timeline. I know it's a lot, but so he graduated in 1954 from Howard with a Bachelor of Architecture, and then after that, he became a graduate architect for the architectural firm of Romulus C. Archer, which is actually a prestigious African-American architectural firm in Washington, D.C., that was employing African-American architects. He worked as an intern architect, planner, housing specialist on a United Nations scholarship in Colombia, South America in 1955, and then he returned home to Accra to join the Housing Corporation as an architect, housing specialist, and planner in 1956. 1962, he was appointed chief architect of the Public Works Department, which later became the Department of Public Construction, followed by the Ghana National Construction Corporation. And so during his tenure as architect and then chief architect of the Ghana Housing Corporation, he became part of Nkrumah's vision, which was enshrined in nation building and his call for indigenous African personality and the cultural identity of Ghana. So it's very important to note that in 1956, this was the beginning of Vic's humble pioneering effort to evolve the concepts for residential and non-residential facilities and institutions and he became the vanguard for low-cost housing in architecture. So a lot of the ideas that he came up with, there was a lot of resistance for it, and they actually became significant impact on the direction of planning and architecture of housing in Ghana today. These projects are a couple of projects that he designed during this period. Just give you a quick snapshot. Don't want to go through them all. But also, we can talk about his relationship with Nkrumah. This right here is Vic at his little drawing board in Ghana. And Nkrumah was very impressed by Mr. Adegbite as the first U.S. trained Gold Coast architect, planner, and housing specialist. But also, he did his assignments and filled his requests very quickly. And the quality of his work and the new housing types that he came up with also impressed Nkrumah a lot. So as a result, Nkrumah asked him to build the Convention People's Party headquarters, to design it. And that was also, I guess I should tell you that when he met Nkrumah again, the first meeting was never brought up, it wasn't remembered, they don't talk about it. So the second time, when he was chief architect of Public Works Department, he was approached by Nkrumah to discuss how the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology was turning out architects at a slow rate. So he wanted Vic's opinion on how to speed it up and make it the program better. So that was where they first came back into contact. And then he asked him to design the Convention People's Party headquarters because of his reputation. So it was a quick turnaround when he asked him to do that. Like, he had a meeting with him maybe Saturday, and then he was supposed to give the designs to him Tuesday morning. He had a meeting with the Nkrumah and the crew, but Nkrumah didn't get to attend. But he was given a great report, and everybody was quite happy about it, the designs, and they were approved very quickly and started up. So with this, Nkrumah promoted Vic to chief architect of the Housing Corporation. And the bond between them was built because they both studied in the US and Nkrumah felt that he found an architect who understood him and his vision for his country and worked swiftly and had a great depth of knowledge of his expertise. And he was very reliable and accountable, and was someone with whom he could work to manifest his development plans efficiently and expeditiously. So here is a picture of Nkrumah right here and Vic right here. And this was him leading Nkrumah, showing him the spot for, I think it was the Convention People Party headquarters that they decided that they were gonna design or build. So quickly, this is the major projects that he completed as chief architect. And one major one that he was very proud of was the State House Improvements Project. And so that was a 750-person conference hall and a 2,000-person banquet hall that he had to design quickly. And then he also designed, the design, construct, and furnish for the Organization for African Unity Conference in Accra in 1965. So he had to do this and turn it around, and it was built and everything in 10 months. Also the Farmers Building, and then because of all the work he did the extensions to the Prime Minister's country home at Pewasi. And then he also designed George Padmore's, the wall housing the urn containing his cremains. And he also designed Du Bois's crypt outside the west wall of the castle. More projects. These are, I don't want to call them minor, but not as big as those, I guess you would call it. So with all the work that he did, part of his job was that he had to maintain some houses. So that included after work every day, he would go to Du Bois's residence, because when Du Bois and Shirley became residents in Ghana, their house became a government house. So he would go and he would inspect it to make sure everything was working, the foundation was good, all that. And he would actually sit down and have convos with Shirley and Du Bois. And they treated him like a proper guest and whatnot. So it wasn't an extreme critical relationship, but at least he knew them. That's just an example. So when Du Bois died, that's why he had Vic choose where he was gonna be buried and designed the crypt for that. So these are pictures. I just want to show you that this is the presidential country home in Petawasi that he designed in 1959. Also, this Convention People's Party headquarters building, 1960. This is a private apartment building in Accra, 1960. This is the International Conference Complex, 1965. This was the conference hall that I just spoke of, for International Conference Complex. So it was what, 250 or 7,500 for a banquet hall? And here's the banquet hall. So he designed all of those, and he worked with Nkrumah until Nkrumah's reign was over. So 1974, he returned back to the US, and he joined Brown and Wright Architects as their architectural consultant, and he was their consultant from 1975 to 1984, where he also designed the new embassy of Ghana in DC. And then he became an assistant professor of the School of Architecture and Planning at Howard in 1984, and then he became chair from 1979. He became chair until 1984, and associate dean from 1988 to 1992 when he claimed to retire. He transitioned January 10, 2014. He never stopped working, although he claimed to retire in 92. He still worked a lot and designed a lot pro bono for a lot of people. The last two projects he was working on before he passed was a university that's supposed to be built in Ghana in the future. It's actually based on the design of Howard, and also a health center that he designed with all this new technology. So that's Vic at the embassy in DC that he designed. I think that's an old picture. I don't think it looks like that anymore. And that's Vic. He is remembered by many colleagues and students. A lot of students credit him with being architects, the reason they became architects to begin with. And one of his close friends and colleagues and mentees, Professor Jadinho, remembers him as, quote, a gentleman, a disciplined professional, a great administrator, a critical thinker, practical designer, innovator. He embodied the best a country could have in the formative stages of its development and nation building after Ghana's independence from colonialism. His global outreach brought in architects, community planners, urban designers, and other professionals from different parts of the world to work with him on numerous projects in Ghana, including Max Bond, the famous African-American architect of the century. Max Bond, as I said, was a famous African-American architect, but he was told in the US that he should probably change his discipline or interest because there were not enough Black or African architects out there. So he ended up going to Ghana, and Vic gave him one of his first opportunities to plan and work with him. And you would never hear that. So this is the untold story of Victor Adegbite, and it's not written down. Most of it comes from the oral history that he told his granddaughter and the papers he wrote, the binder papers that he left with his family and his grandchildren, so they know about what he did. And that's it.